The weather is about to become more active the deeper we move into January, and this does mean increased chances of winter storms across areas of the country. And I'm not just talking about for areas that's already seen a whole lot of winter weather so far this season. I think this will be for areas further to the south also. So we're here to discuss it all. We'll break it down, get very detailed on all the latest overnight to morning model guidance. We'll spend most of the video on that. And then we'll speak on this storm system right out ahead of us. Over the next few days into this weekend, we'll have a storm system that sweeps across the country. It'll bring us severe weather, and on the cold side of it, we'll bring a winter storm. So we'll bring you the details on that, and then after that, we'll round the video off with today's weather. My name is Mitch. Good Wednesday morning. I hope you guys are doing well. I've had a wonderful week so far. Subscribe if you haven't, like the video if you like it, and if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please drop it in the comments below. It's a very important part of this channel, so please drop your prayer request below. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. So we're going to switch it up. We've been starting off with the upper pattern. We're going to discuss that here in a second, but I just want to show you the latest model runs. Even me. This is the first thing I look at when I wake up in the morning, right? Everybody wants to see, is any of these model runs, individual models, showing anything flashy? So we're going to start off with this. We'll show the eastern U.S. first, and then we'll move into the central U.S. I think the eastern U.S. will be more active in this pattern coming up over the next couple weeks or so, but that could change. But let's go over the latest Euro. So we're going to start off with Sunday afternoon. Timestamp is up here, January the 11th. There's a timestamp over here too. So the blue is snow, green is rain, any kind of pink you see, that's kind of a wintry mix. Let's not get too lost in the details though with that. So we're moving forward. This storm system will break down in the middle of the video, sweeps through. We get some cold air that follows in behind it. So we'll get a little bit of northwest flow snow, some lake effect snow, nothing too crazy at all. But as we move into next week, we're getting into next Monday, we're getting into Tuesday, we're getting into Wednesday, another trough, and we'll discuss the upper pattern and what a trough means here in a second. But another dip in the jet moves down. A storm system will be associated with it, and the dots will try to connect for a larger storm system. But on the latest Euro, it looks like we get a low pressure that escapes out ahead of this main trough, and some energy's diving down, trying to connect with some Gulf moisture. We're getting into the 14th, into the 15th, next Wednesday and Thursday, and we got some energy diving down. This falls in the form of some higher elevation snow in the southern Alps and just the Appalachian Mountains, and up north it's snow. Nothing too crazy, right? Another low pressure tries to pop off here, and this is next, Thursday into Friday. This is starting to get past day 7. So nothing really gets going. And if you've been tuning in for a while, I've been mentioning this trough that'll dig across the eastern U.S. and how there is a big storm system chance. It's small, but it's there. And the GFS shows it this morning. I'm about to show you that here in a second. It's a big time fantasy run. A lot of people will like that run for winter weather fans. But we get 10 days out. This is Friday into Saturday, 16th into the 17th. Another shot of cold air moves in. The jet continues to be active to the south. Northern stream is active with the energy diving in with the trough. Little bit of higher elevation snow we're starting to get into next weekend. And then we have some moisture right up, and there's a cold air boundary setting up. You can tell by this 540 line, cold air moving in the atmosphere. And then boom, we get a fantasy run. And it's not past 300 hours out either. It's still pretty far out, past 10 days. And this is for Sunday, January the 18th. Not a forecast, so as I always say, don't tell your brother's uncle's pet kangaroo that it's going to snow in Charlotte January the 18th on a Sunday. Okay, this is just one model run, but it does support somewhat of the pattern in place. A lot of cold air up top, and if I keep this going, we get a full-fledged winter storm, not this Sunday, next Sunday. If this was to verify across the Carolinas, and that's a pretty nice snowstorm. Of course, the orange and the pink, that's a wintry mix of sleet and freezing rain, but this affects the upper southeast into the mid-Atlantic and then turns into a big snowstorm across the mid-Atlantic into the 18th, 19th, and then we're done. And then what happens after that? We get over 300 hours out. You can tell there's a lot of zonal cold air in place, but nothing too flashy really after that. So we get a fantasy run when? Around the Martin Luther King weekend, okay? Which has always been kind of a big period over the last few years for winter storms across areas of the South. Not really anywhere in particular, but the South in general. The MLK weekend basically has been just kind of a hitter lately. But the GFS, what does it show? It's a little different. It likes next week more. So we start off with Sunday. Storm system moves in. We get into next Tuesday, we get into next Wednesday. Here comes some energy, northern stream coming down. So a lot of energy starts to try to come together. This gets into the 14th, 1 week from today. Now, this is going to make your eyes get real big, like a deer in the headlights. Don't get overly excited about this. This is why I don't share it on social media. It would make the rounds fast. I would make a little bit of money, but it would be the wrong thing to do, even with context provided. Does this fit the pattern? I'll talk about it here in a second. Here it comes. We're getting into Thursday, and then a big juiced up low pressure. This would be very beneficial rain, by the way. Gets going, marginal air in place at first. Higher elevation, nuke job. I mean, it is snowing like crazy. And then cold air meets up with this, and this turns into a massive snowstorm as we're getting into next Friday morning, the 16th, for areas of the interior eastern U.S., the Appalachian Mountains especially, and it would just be a battleground of rain and snow, I would say east of the mountains, right? 993 low. This is a phasing. Remember, I told you there's a small possibility next week with this trough digging down that we can get some energy, some dots to connect. On this one of the GFS, the dots do connect. And what happens? Well, we get a big old snowstorm. This rides up, turns into a huge snowstorm from the southern Alps all the way into New England. And this drops a ton of snow. And I will show it to you. I mean, who cares, right? We're just having fun a little bit here, but we're keeping things realistic too. And of course, this drops just a ridiculous amount of snow from the North Carolina, Tennessee mountains all the way up. Okay. It's a cool run, but does it fit the pattern? What I want to tell you right here is there is a small chance this could happen. The dots are there, but the chances of them connecting are low because that's an outlier run. Nothing else is really showing that. But it's still past day 7 or just outside of day 7. So some things can still come together to make that happen. Now you continue to go past deeper into the GFS run. It shows, some cold air, a little energy right here. And this is the same time frame that the Euro has this. Let's back it up a little bit. Right here. Okay. This is around next Sunday. Shows a winter storm for areas of the southeast and the upper southeast mid-Atlantic, right? This is the GFS same time frame. There is some energy here in the form of some snow in the mountains of North Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, but it doesn't connect any dots. It pops off a low pressure here, but not as much cold air to work with as the Euro has. GFS, the rest of the run, shows a big-time cutter moving in and a winter storm moving across the Midwest, and at the very end of the run, delivers some snow for New England, and it's just too warm to the southeast. Now, what about this is the GFS AI model run, which has been delivering some goods lately, that's for sure. But we are not quite sure if this is a very good model yet. It's kind of its first run on the block in winter. Okay. Last season we had the Euro AI model that it made its first season debut. It did all right. But same thing. We start to get into next week. This is next Tuesday, Wednesday. We got some energy diving in with this trough. This is northern stream type stuff. So this would probably be some snow, rain. We're not going to overly focus on that, but this would show up as, let's look at the temperatures here. This would be a solid northwest flow event for the mountains. And remember the AI models, you can look at some other sites too, and it kind of predicts what the moisture is. But it's just going to show moisture, precipitation. It's not going to show whether it's rain or snow. So we can say that that's probably snow in the higher elevations. Okay. And then we move past this, what happens? Okay. It doesn't have this huge low pressure like the GFS. So that's the Euro and the GFS AI that does not support the crazy snowstorm that GFS is showing. But it does begin to dive in some cold air, a little bit of moisture. We start getting closer to that time frame of interest that the Euro is showing, right? And some cold air is diving in, trying to suppress this moisture. And, it doesn't really do much. Let's look at the temperatures in this time frame. Yeah, very marginal. So nothing's really happening in that time frame that the Euro is showing. Then some cold air starts to bog down, gets zonal. If the cold air is zonal very far south, that works out. And we actually have moisture being suppressed in the Gulf. If we can get this moisture to come up, that'd be a winter storm for the southeast. And it tries to do that. You see a low pressure pop off here around Monday, January the 19th. Low pressure popping off. Cold air is in place for a lot of areas, but it just doesn't come together. So there's a lot going on there. I mean, and if you look at, let's look at the Euro AI model, see if we have the entirety of the run. We do, so let's look at this on the fly here. What does it show? I think I already had that up. I did. All right, but let's go on and knock this off. Let's look at the Euro AI model. What does it show? We're just taking our time this morning. I got a little extra time. And we get about a week from today, and it does show a lot of energy off the coast of the eastern U.S. The dots are not connecting. This is one dot. When I say dots, areas of energy. This is one dot. This is another dot. They are not connecting. That's just northwest flow snow. Okay, and I support that more so than a juiced up low pressure in a GFS. I'm not saying that's not possible. I just don't think that's going to happen. It does try to pop off a low here, and then we start to get into Thursday into Friday, and then there's a clipper, and then the pattern kind of resets, and then a lot of cold air dives down. But does the dots connect? It's close. Woo-wee! And this is the first time me looking at this. This is the same time frame as the Euro. There's some moisture down here. You can look at that 0 degrees Celsius line. It's 32 degrees aloft, about a mile up in the atmosphere. And there's some cold air. Okay, it's really close to doing something there. Anyway, it pops off a big low pressure right here. So let's look at temperatures, right? What are the temperatures in this entire time frame? They're pretty marginal, but there's some cold air bogging it down. But it's close. Ooh, it's close. Let's look at what kind of winter weather it shows. Yeah, it shows a touch of snow along the coastline of the Carolinas on this run. If you look at the run prior to this, it kind of shows something similar. There's something about the 19th through the 21st of January. I'm not ready to honk the horn too much at it, but there's something about that. The Euro and the AI model likes it. And then after that, cold air is still around, and then there's a low pressure that kind of falls up, and who knows what happens 360 hours out. Okay, now we look at the central U.S. Spent a lot of time on the eastern U.S. What about the central U.S.? Well, there's not as much to talk about because it looks like next week a lot of the energy dives into the eastern U.S. So we start off this coming Sunday. We get into Monday the 12th. Tuesday, here comes the trough diving down. This is the western side of it. We'll have some energy that kind of swings in. Not showing anything crazy. We get into Wednesday, Thursday of next week, and then 9-10 days out, a lot of cold air dives down with a lot of northern stream energy with it. You can see it in the form of snow, some rain in the warmer areas, and tries to deliver a snowstorm, 10 days from now across the upper Midwest, Great Lakes region. And cold air does try to get all the way down to the south central U.S. just past 10 days, the 17th. And we see some snow breaking out across areas of Texas down here, even a slither of snow right outside of Houston. And that's when things kind of wind up, turn into that winter storm across the southeast. And then what happens after that? Just cold air tries to dive in. That warm air, cold air boundary kind of bounces back and forth, but nothing too crazy on that run. You look at the GFS, what does it show? We get into Tuesday of next week, Wednesday, we get into Thursday, and you can see something is trying to dig here. And it's just too marginal. Nothing really happens, man, but there's something close. But that's when it turns into that crazy run for the eastern U.S. that I'm not buying right now. And then a lot of cold air drops down. It's 10 days out. We got a lot of northern stream energy that kind of dives down, tries to tap into some Gulf moisture right here. But it just doesn't get the job done. Then a lot of cold air dives down to the middle of the country, and then boom, there's your fantasy run across areas of the southern plains. This is Tuesday, January the 20th. It's a big old overrunning event. A lot of moisture overrunning, a lot of cold Arctic air, and then we get just this big juiced up system. And let's see if we can get the entirety of the run here. And yeah, I mean, it's a big storm system. And then you look at the Euro AI model. Let's show it to you. Not that. And let's see what it shows right here. Same thing. We'll move forward. Start off Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Watch out for that. That could be accumulating snow. Clipper, 997, pretty strong. That's past day 7, though, pretty far out. And then here comes the cold air bogging down. There's a Gulf low down here trying to tap into some cold air diving down. So, yeah, it's close. There's a lot of close things here. And then, the pattern could shift. It's hard to believe anything past 10 days, even past 7 days. But you look at the pattern, right? This is the 200 millibar jet stream. What I'm saying is the 200 millibar pattern. So, like 40,000 feet up in the air. This is what you look at when you try to figure out what the jet is. And as we move about a week from today, it makes sense how it's kind of bowing out here. It's kind of screaming down here, and then it's kind of going like this and then like that. That makes sense because there is a trough digging it across and down into this area. And I'll show you the upper pattern here in a second that reflects that. Makes perfect sense. So your energy is kind of coming down here and then has an opportunity for some energy to kind of connect into here, kind of like what the GFS does. And after we move past this time frame, okay, everything kind of not gets zoned out a little bit, but it kind of flattens out, and it looks like we just get an active storm track kind of going right through here. But where is our cold air diving into this active storm track? It's a big question. I know I say that a lot, but it is a lot of big questions, right? So you look at the Euro ensemble. All right, between now and the next week, not really an impressive signal for anyone except the northern sections of the country. You move past next week, you can see, watch this area kind of fill in a little bit, kind of right into here. Maybe a little bit further south of that line too. Let's switch it back to that. Watch how things kind of fill in a little bit, especially the mountains, okay? So it's still a pretty pathetic run, right? But I do think things can change fast. And listen, I wouldn't buy too much into this past day 7. The pattern, there's so much cold air close by. And I'll discuss that here in a second. But this is the ice ensemble run. Not the best thing to look at, but it does show how there is members that show ice out of the Euro ensemble, which makes up 51 members. So you can tell how, we're getting some splotchy ice signals here. And what I'll tell you here for people who, and I've read the comments and I totally agree. For people who's like, dude, I don't care about if it's winter weather or not. We just need rain. The pattern coming up, notice I said the word active, is going to be active because we're going to get, I think, multiple rounds of precipitation. So this is just precipitation. Could be snow, could be rain, but it certainly looks like the eastern U.S. is going to get their fair share of storm systems based off this. This is multiple inch kind of mean here, ensemble average, so it's definitely coming. Now we discussed the upper pattern. Now this is kind of where we geek out with you guys a little bit, right? So the blues and kind of any greens you see embedded into the blues, lower pressure, lower heights, a trough, normally brings cold air with it, storm system with it, and then the warmer colors you see on your screen, yeah, you guessed it, it's warmer than average air, warmer temperatures, and a ridge, higher pressure, higher heights. So you see this blob of blue kind of over the northeast, Atlantic Canada. This is our storm system that's going to sweep throughout the rest of the week into the weekend. And then we're going to start off Sunday, January the 12th. So let's get this in motion. Remember I told you next week there's going to be the risk for a storm system and a trough. I keep mentioning that, and a shot of cold air that follows. Here it is. You see the blue, bang, pop up on your screen in the central to eastern U.S. And we've trended this to more digging. So the trough axis and the highest signal for lower heights was kind of more so over here. Now it's kind of over here and it's digging back west. To me, that increases the chances for energy to kind of dive into this trough and to have an opportunity to kind of dig back up and then turn into an all-out strong low pressure, kind of like what the GFS is indicating. But I still think we got a lot of work to do. But regardless, this is a signal for energy around, lower pressure, lower heights, and a trough digging across the eastern U.S. next week. I've been honking the horn. Others have too. It's something happening mid-month for a while. And sure enough, we're going to get a jet that digs across the central to eastern U.S., and we're going to get something associated with it. But is that something, and it's going to be an aggressive northwest flow snow event? Is it going to be something like what the GFS is showing? Is it going to be something in between? I mean, is it just going to be cold and dry? I don't think a lot of cold air is going to come down with this, honestly, because our cold air source is not that great in this pattern, in this time frame, but I do think it'll bring some cooler air. What's interesting to me is after this trough digs down, this is the 15th to the 16th, next week, we get into next weekend, and this blue continues to show up. And what I'm seeing here is we're getting this is kind of a bit of a neutral PNA because we do have a trough kind of extending over the western U.S. We got some ridging too, so it's kind of neutral, but we're getting a broad spiking, I wouldn't call it spiking, it's more so broad ridge getting up to Alaska. And we're starting to get a little bit of a return to some blocking in the higher latitudes, negative NAO. And this could lock in a stormy track kind of down here into this dip in the jet, this kind of broad trough digging here. So if we continue to move this forward, especially as we get into really firmly into next weekend, not this weekend, next weekend, into the early portion of the week after, like I said, the 18th through the 22nd, you can see this trough nudge kind of literally nudging further south, okay? And this ridge spiking up to Alaska allows for some energy to dive in here. And what I think is going to be an active southern jet undercutting this ridge. Can some dots connect right into here? I'm telling you, and this big blob of blue is a cold air source. It's bringing in a lot of cold air down into this too. There's probably going to be an intense gradient of cold air and warm air setting up somewhere. And then it gets even more impressive. We get kind of firmly past 300 hours out. I mean, sometime past the 19th, 20th. And that is a very impressive signal for a lot of cold air diving down from the higher latitudes. Look at this block returning over Greenland. It's a negative NAO. So a lot of teleconnections, the PNAs, the EPOs, the NAOs, the AOs. When I say AOs, NAOs, that's blocking, and you get negatives in those. That's blocking the higher latitudes. Dislodges cold air, dislodges the jet, locks in a stormy track. So we got a lot of cold air kind of diving into this region right here. And I think we create some type of thermal boundary here between warm air and cold air. But I think models are going to struggle with this and how far south or north this boundary is. And we've had a trend already in the medium range of this being further south. For example, big time frame of interest right here. This is, just as 11, 12 days out. Okay, Sunday, January the 18th. Sorry, I'm excited. I love talking about weather. I'm going to switch it to tropical tidbits here, and we're going to look at the EPS, and we are going to look at this because I can go further back on this. And let's go all the way. It's the same thing. You just don't see, it's a little kind of muted here as far as the colors. Same thing. This is the current EPS run, okay, for Sunday, January the 18th. What about the run prior? You see how that blue kind of goes back up north a little bit? What about the run prior to this? You see how a ridge is in place? Okay, this was the run like 48 hours ago. And then we look at the run prior to that. Run prior to that. Run prior to that. So let's go all the way to the current run. And I know you see a little glitch there. It happens. So we're going to go all the way. This was the run back on like 12Z January the 4th. When that was like 3 or 4 days ago. Okay. Let's go all the way to the current run. Can you see that trend? How that blue is extending further to the south. So what are we doing? We're already kicking the can with the ridge. We're kicking the can. A lot of things improve here. Okay. But I know that's kind of, you're like, dude, please stop. I get it. I want to stop too. So we've had a trend where we're kicking the can of the ridge. And we just need to watch. So as far as temperatures, how they correlate, well, the storm system that's going to sweep through this week is going to bring a shot of cooler air, mainly for the south. Okay, this blue, greens, this is anywhere from a few degrees to several degrees below average. It's going to cool us down dramatically Sunday into Monday. And this hangs around with us, and then a trough opens up across the eastern U.S. next week. We've been talking about that. This kind of brings us back to average or slightly below average temperatures across the east. And then when that big bowled out trough shows up, okay, right here, see how everything kind of, boom, big area of blue right there. That's going to bring down a lot of cold air. In a response, watch what happens in that same time frame. The entire country just about cools off. You go to the end of the run, massive pool of cold air in the northern sections of the country and Canada. If you're thinking in the south, well, that doesn't mean squat for us. It absolutely does. That's really readying our cold air supply, and this could easily dislodge the south. Easily. And remember, this is prime climo. You don't need temperatures that are 20 degrees below average, even for areas in the south, to get winter weather. The coldest time climo-wise of the year is mid to late January. That's why it's absolutely blowing my mind. For people that are saying winter is over, that's just an emotional response. And quite honestly, a lot of people aren't going to like that, but I always keep it real with y'all. Y'all are being a bunch of crybabies. You really are. That's just an emotional response to something that isn't satisfying your eyes right at that moment. And you know it is. It's a ridiculous comment. And I'm keeping receipts. I don't have a tally of all the comments that are said. That's not what I mean, but we'll see what happens. I might eat my words, but regardless, even if we don't get a winter storm for the South, I mean, it's January the 7th, guys, at 9:53 a.m. Eastern Time. What are you talking about? So, anyways, let's talk about the storm right ahead of us, okay? This is starting off tomorrow, January the 8th. Low pressure, popping off the base of the trough. 995. We got storms in response in the greenish, yellowish, orange that you see here on your screen. I hope that this video does not have any issues uploading because I'm fired up this morning. I'm excited, fired up, etc., all of the above. 996, cutting across the country. This is going to bring the ingredients, overlapping ingredients for severe weather to the south of this low pressure. And this cuts. There will be a winter weather side of this, I think, but not as much as the second low pressure, second short wave that cuts across. So we start to move into Friday morning. Pivotal weather. Would be nice if you moved a little bit faster for us in the audience here. But we start to get into Friday evening and then Friday night and the Saturday. You can see another low pressure cutting, and this is going to bring thunderstorms Friday and even into Friday night, Saturday morning across areas of the South. So this is what's going to be responsible for bringing us our severe weather chances. And I do think there's going to be a chance at a winter storm for the Great Lakes region. We'll focus in on that here in a second. But in response to these two short waves popping off this trough, low pressures, of course, it's going to bring a corridor of favorable kinematics, wind energy available to the pattern for severe weather. So this kind of purple, reddish areas, this is flow at about 18,000 feet up in the air. And you can tell by the wind barbs that are pointing to the southwest, that means that the flow is coming out the southwest. What is that doing? It's bringing more moisture from the south to the north. So you create this corridor of wind flow, overlapping areas of the country. Okay, you can see it swinging through with each impulse at the surface. And then in response, these are dew points in the 60s, support severe weather, definitely for this time of the year, for anywhere in the country. But, we get into Thursday afternoon, and it's tomorrow. We get this corridor of dew points in the 60s all the way into Arkansas, southern Missouri, the Mississippi Valley region. And then we get into Friday, and we get this corridor of dew points that get all the way into the 60s, all the way into Kentucky. Now, this is a bit more muted for Kentucky than the last few runs. It's just the operational Euro, but we got some deep moisture for the western deep south. Dew points in the 60s, maybe even some 70-plus dew points down here, which is absolutely outrageous for mid-January. But anyways, we start to get into Sunday. If you got any activities playing across the southeast, it is going to be warm, and it's going to be humid too. These are dew points. Saturday afternoon across the southeast mid-Atlantic. Could the dew points reach 60 degrees in D.C. on January the 10th? The Euro says absolutely could. So wild stuff. So all these overlapping ingredients are thermodynamics, moisture, CAPE levels, lapse rates, being overlapped by the kinematics, wind energy in the atmosphere is going to support a multi-day threat of severe weather. Today, we got a marginal risk in place across areas of Oklahoma, Texas. Nothing too crazy about this. We move into tomorrow, a larger severe weather threat area, but the risk still remains at a marginal risk, level 1 out of 5. And I do think there is a higher risk for tornadoes. Today, there's not even a 2% risk. That could change in the next update. But a pretty large 2% risk of a tornado. I could see tomorrow going to a slight risk, guys. So I can say you heard it here first, but I could easily see tomorrow going to a slight risk. But then we look at day 3. Okay, we do have a slight risk. Okay, we have a 15% risk of severe weather. That could be tornadoes. We're probably not going to get a 15% risk of tornadoes, but it's probably going to be different damaging winds and maybe some hail. So there's already a level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather for areas in the mid and deep south. And there could be some severe weather chances for Saturday too across the southeast and upper mid-Atlantic. We'll watch for that. So there is going to be a winter weather side of this. There's the first low pressure on the northern side. This is getting into tomorrow evening. Nebraska, northern Iowa, southern areas of Minnesota, through areas of Wisconsin, the UP, and Michigan. We could get a kind of a slither of snow, not much. And then the secondary low pressure that pops off here. This will deliver some snow for the southern Rockies, southern Colorado areas of New Mexico, heck, even into the panhandle of Oklahoma and Texas. Could get some accumulating snow. We haven't had much of that in that area of the country so far this winter. And then this could turn into, as we have some northern stream energy that dives down into the leftover energy, moving through that could get us going for a more high impact winter storm across areas of the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes region. You can tell here, I don't think this is going to be a major winter storm, but it could deliver some significant snowfall accumulations, and then that's it. Now, if you look at the 48-hour ensemble snowfall mean here, you're going to see here comes kind of the first wave of snow, not much, and then here comes the second wave. Okay, and I mean the signal's pretty beefy here in the southern and central high plains. It's going for a few inch snowfall mean. Right here where Kansas, Colorado, Oklahoma, Texas, and New Mexico kind of all come together, you could get a few inches of snow. We'll fine tune that as we go. And then of course there's a more of a beefed up signal across areas, let's switch it to this, across areas of the Great Lakes region. I think some areas will get over a half a foot of snow. Could be a wet snow too. So we'll continue to watch out for that. Today's weather, western U.S. continue to have rounds of moisture. Central U.S. it's quiet. And we have a warmer system for January standards. And compared to what you've seen lately across the Northeast, some snow, a little bit of freezing rain out here, and a little bit of rain. Outside of that, nothing too crazy. Watches, warnings, and advisories. We do have winter weather advisories across the Northeast and New England. A lot of fog. So you might wonder, what's up with the fog lately across areas of the country? Well, when you have a lot of warm air overspreading what's a pretty cold ground and a lot of moisture riding north, higher dew points, it creates fog. And normally when you have a big warm-up, a January thaw, you're going to get a lot of fog. That's just what happens a lot. But the western U.S., a lot of alerts, some winter storm warnings across the Cascades, southern Rockies. You got winter storm warnings up. The Rockies, just a lot of winter weather advisories. And you see right here, the winter storm watches, this is for that snow on the way over the next few days that I just spoke on. So they've already honking the horn at some winter storm watches in this area. Today, quiet across the southeast, big warm up underway, widespread 60s and 70s. And then the northeast, the leftovers of this storm system will head on out. By the time we get into this evening and the overnight hours, it will be done. And then we look at the south central U.S., nothing to really speak on over kind of the daytime period. But then the energy, that first short wave will move through, and we're waking up tomorrow morning to finally some weather, right? Some rain moving across areas of Nebraska, Oklahoma, and we'll wake up to probably some thunderstorms tomorrow morning across areas of the southern and central plains. So, it's been quiet. It's not going to be quiet tomorrow. Not a severe weather outbreak by any means. But the upper Midwest, north central U.S., I mean, you get a quiet day of weather. There is nothing to speak on. Out west, higher elevation snow. A lot of energy starting to move into the picture that will eventually eject across the middle of the country. And then the eastern U.S. as far as temperatures. Fall upcoming. A lot of snow melt today across areas that have snow on the ground still. We got 60s and 70s rising all the way up into the mid-Atlantic. And just January thaw settling in. Don't let this trick you guys. It's going to trick people. Doesn't matter how many times I say it. But out west, this is what we're looking at, kind of on the stormy side of this trough, but a significant cool down should be on the way, at least for a couple days. But hey, that's all I got, guys. No evening video tonight. I got church. But I'm going to see how the next 24, 36 hours of model runs go. But we might start doing the 2-a-days again starting tomorrow. We'll see how it goes. Listen, I'm going to be real with you. I'm a winter weather fan, so I'm pulling for winter weather. Some people don't like that, but I think the people who's been tuning in for a while know how I am. I'm not going to ever let that interfere with what I think can happen, and we call that wish casting, right? But I'm always going to pull for it, that's for sure. So, hey, that's all I got. Have a wonderful day. We'll talk again soon, and yeah.